You had just the one.
60 years. that's
Okay,
all.
all right.
That's what they are.
That makes me feel a little better.
Okay, I think it started. It started. Deal with it. This meeting will be video recorded and broadcast over local access channel 18 and through the town website at www.eastham-ma.gov. And I have a little quote to start the meeting. I am, as I've said, merely competent, but in an age of incompetence, that makes me extraordinary. One. All right. We are starting tonight at 5. All right, to open the meeting, is there any public or select board information not related to tonight's agenda? So anything from the board? None, and nothing from the public. So we're gonna go into public hearing number 1. So this is the public hearing for mooring and vessel storage regulation revisions. The Eastham Select Board will hold a public hearing on Monday, April 24th at 5 p.m. at the Eastham Town Hall, 2500 State Highway, and with virtual participation to consider and possibly vote to revise mooring and vessel storage regulations in order to manage procedures and activities of Eastham's waterways, landings, and beaches. Changes include, but are not limited to, unattended vessels, residency requirements, and unutilized moorings. Draft regulations may be reviewed at the Eastham Town Hall, 2500 State Highway, Eastham, Mass, or on the town website at www.eastham-ma.gov on the Natural Resources Department webpage. So we had the proposed vessel storage and mooring regulation updates in the packet. And I'm going to first turn it over. We turn it over to our harbor master or to the select board. Yeah.
I think Shane is up there.
Shayna's standing there. Attention, Shayna.
Yeah, so we were here a couple of times discussing the vessel storage and mooring regulations. So for the proposed vessel storage regulations, we actually just have 3 changes. The first one is not permitting advertising of businesses. The second is not permitting subletting or rental of the vessel storage permits or locations. And lastly, restricting the vessel storage permits to Eastham taxpayers or year-round residents renting property in town. Year-round.
Is there any questions from the board on the updates? I think we had thrown in a few last minute changes and it looks like those were done. Is there?
Yeah.
Everybody feel good?
Yep.
All right.
Is Jerry feeling good?
Jerry,
He's our lawyer.
What?
are you feeling good about this?
Yeah, yes, this is fine.
He's a
Sorry.
lawyer.
Have to earn my pay here.
Get you a little set of
All
scales.
right,
over
so
here.
then I'll need a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the vessel storage regulations and policies as amended.
I'll second that.
Okay, and since everyone is here, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay,
Oh,
opposed?
here,
No
so
opposed?
excited.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you
guys.
so much.
Good job.
Wait, we have the mooring ones too.
Yeah, for
Oh, the mooring
was it
separate
3 or
ones, right?
4 times.
Mooring separate.
Did we need to ask if the public wanted to comment? I'm sorry,
Probably.
Yes, you do.
Good plan. Is
before we voted on it.
Oh,
I don't, that's a question.
yeah.
there anyone from the public?
Is there anyone from the public with comments on this? I don't think there is. Rich is
No.
here, but I don't see any hands raised.
Nope.
Okay, all right, just.
Yeah. I didn't think so.
Because it was,
Okay.
we said public
Thank you,
hearing and all.
Suzanne.
Probably a small detail. Thanks, Suzanne. All right. And is there any public comment on mooring? Go ahead with that.
Yeah.
None?
Do you want me to just go through what the changes
Sure.
are? Okay. So for the mooring regulations, we have a few changes and additional sections added. So the first one is the provision for moorings to be removed if they've not been utilized for more than or for less than 2 weeks in a year. We have a definition for marina moorings, which is specific to waterfront properties along town code. We're not allowing the subletting or rental of moorings. We have a section not allowing vessels to be left unattended anywhere on town landings or outside of vessel storage areas. We have a section addressing abandoned and derelict vessels. we are addressing no advertising. We have a fee, a new fee for marina moorings for $220, which is the same as the fee that Orleans has. And we have a section on the requirements for placing moorings in front of waterfront properties, requiring them to get permission.
Thank you. Is there any questions from the select board on these updates?
I think it all looks great.
Jerry?
Okay, it's okay. I make a motion, we approve the mooring regulations.
Second.
Call the vote, all in favor?
Aye.
Driving on the
Great.
beach.
Great,
people.
thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks for all your hard work.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we really appreciate that. Okay. Next, we are going to public hearing licensing. let's read this one, right?
Is that the
Here we
little
go.
overhead?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Public hearing for new seasonal all alcohol license, common victular license and entertainment license for Little Overhead Cafe. This is the Town of Eastham public hearing. The Town of Eastham will hold a public hearing at,
Uh-oh. Are we in trouble?
Yeah, it says 5:30,
Oh.
No,
Okay,
but that's all right. We can,
does this?
we
say
can read it at
5:30?
5:30 because we weren't gonna do it anyway right now.
Where does it say? Oh,
In the notice, it's- yeah,
Don't we have to wait to open it up
right,
and then
Yeah.
close it again?
yeah,
right.
do this right at 5:30.
Right at 5:30, yeah.
Okay.
Bump into town.
So why don't
Wait a
we move
few
on
minutes,
to the
okay? I'm sorry.
aquaculture?
Okay,
Sorry,
all right.
move on to aquaculture, go to licensing.
All right, skipping the license, annual licenses for aquaculture vehicles. I'm sorry. Hi. Hello. I will hand the meeting over to you while I try to find my place.
So Jackie, I believe Jackie submitted the letter for me. But basically.
Aren't I good to you?
Yeah, so it was a new process, and last year, we weren't really sure where to go with it, because it's one of the new requirements, which last year was the very first year we did it. Every year, anyone that is trying to access their sites with a truck does have to come and apply for a license to access the grants. Like to drive across the town flats. So we kind of put this in place to have a little bit more of, control on every individual in case there was somebody that was causing problems or not following the conditions. So it was just another layer of protection to work with growers to have them approved for driving on the beach. And I believe in there is also the schedule that shows what their summer access is allowed, May to September, as well as what we will be monitoring for the horseshoe crabs. We don't give the access based on the tide, it's just based on days and times, so not all of those days on the schedule says access, they're actually gonna be able to utilize. So, if you have any questions on this process or how it went?
Was this reviewed with Rex? I know that they had some.
Yes, so the schedule is put together between myself, Jackie, Rec, conservation, and I believe. Rec Commission.
Great.
So they all had a kind of part in getting that together.
Jerry?
yeah, one. My memory, thinking back when I was on the finance committee last year, one of the questions that came up, I think Rec was worried about complaints during the beach and safety and so forth at first encounter. Were there any complaints, any, excuse me, problems with that,
No,
last
it
year?
was not. It was a great, it was a great season last year. And we believe that because they come off so early, there really isn't a mix between a large user group of people at the beach and the drivers. So the only thing that we encountered was yoga sometimes, but they, I believe, moved a little bit further away from their route. I noticed it was a low tide and, so Christine said she was gonna reach out to them just to make sure there was nothing on there that they're concerned about. And she never said anything was a problem with that aspect. So we had a great summer last year.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good.
And most of the travel really, Jerry, is, close to dark.
Yeah.
There's no one on
Yeah,
the beach.
Right, right. I just it was an issue last year, just wanted to raise it to make sure.
Yeah, and that actually, we did keep the schedule pretty much exactly the same as last year for that reason.
Went
Only
so
having
well.
1 year of data, we wanted to make sure that we really had some other, components to work with, and don't have any concerns with this coming summer. I don't believe, I don't have a worry that they're gonna do anything different. We did open it up a little sooner in September because the beaches just got very quiet, so it allowed them to have more full access at the end of, actually, I believe it starts in the second week of June.
Right.
Yep.
I don't have the date right in front of me, but so we did give them that back and trying to hope to like provide a little more to them once we knew everything on the beach was very quiet. So, but it is, other than that, pretty much the same as last year.
And Nicole, I appreciate the applications are really thorough and consistent, that it's easy to like see that each person has submitted the same data and where to find it.
Yeah.
That was really nice.
I was worried I was giving you guys a whole lot of stuff at once, so. And I think I did alphabetical
Yeah, I mean,
order. Okay.
I think what's
I
nice
tried.
is going into the second year, seeing that there is a system now and there is, a protocol to how you're doing this and like it's,
Yes.
you can see it and
Yes,
it's nice. So
thank
thank you.
Yeah, and the re-inspections for the vehicles happen in September, because I try to get them.
It's a good time of year to do it.
Yeah, and what originally it was always the start of driving was October 1st.
Mhm.
And then it would expire in April, so we would reapply and redo their inspections in September prior to October 1st approval. So I have held them to that. We've just stuck to that. So if they want access again, starting at the beginning of the season, which in my mind begins October 1st, they all start coming back in and doing their reinspection. So that way each year we're seeing that their vehicles, and they're good about it. I'll get an email back, I've got a problem, I gotta get fixed, and then I'll call you. So it kind of like works where they are staying on top of the health of the stuff and make sure
Yeah.
we won't have any hazards out there. So
That's great. All right, any other questions or comments? All right, I will take a motion.
Do you want the whole list read? you think?
Yeah, I
Okay.
think we can do them as a group.
Oh, you don't want to read them individually then?
Oh, no, I'm saying you
Okay.
can just say as
Okay.
as written.
I'll make a motion to approve the annual. I guess it's the summer driving. Vehicle access to aquaculture grants, or is it?
well.
It's annual.
It's annual, okay.
Correct,
It's
yes,
just
thank
that it's
you, sorry.
expanded.
All right, let me start over. I'll make a motion to approve the annual licenses for aquaculture vehicles as listed.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None? Great.
Awesome,
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks. All right, so we are at 5:15, so we're gonna keep going. Common victular renewal license renewal for Nauset Ice Cream and Eastham Hotel Management, Inc., doing business as Captain's Quarters Motel and Conference Center. So have those here. Any questions on the applications?
I'll make a motion to approve the common victor license for Nauset Ice Cream and the Captain's Quarters Motel.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, none. Thank you. Entertainment license renewal, Eastham Hotel Management, Inc., doing business as Captain's Quarters Motel and Conference Center. Okay, any questions on the license renewal? See anything that stood out?
I'll make a motion to approve the entertainment license renewal for the Captain's Quarters.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye. Sorry.
Okay, it passes unanimous. Okay, then Hawker Peddler license renewal for Good Times Ice Cream Truck.
I'll make a motion to approve the Hawker Peddler license renewal for Good Times Ice Cream Truck.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Okay. Administrative matters, we are at 5:16. Action, okay, amended remote participation for boards and committee members, Jackie.
So every time the governor makes a decision, we have to amend our regulations. So it's just a little tweak. It's not a huge one. We're still allowed to be remote for a while.
And so this, but it's still, we need to have a majority in person. Right, okay, I'm just confirming. Any questions from the board? Okay. Take a motion.
I move we approve the remote participation for board and committee members.
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Yes. Proposed letter of support for Bill SD 1040. This was Art. I thought it was extremely well written. I was happy with it.
Yeah, so this is the bill to include year-round housing restrictions in the current legislation.
Make a motion, we approve the letter of support. For Bill SD 1040.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None? Okay,
Just real quick, Jamie,
Yep.
back to the remote participation. I believe it does say that remote people can count towards a quorum.
Oh, yes, that's the change.
Yeah, until March 31st, 2025 now.
oh, so
Right.
we could have quorum even,
Yep,
so
we
we
could,
could
all
have
five
just
of
one
us could be
person.
on Zoom.
Okay.
Yeah,
Mhm.
which we don't recommend.
No.
but-
No, we try
Recommend.
to avoid that, but it is good to know and good to know for the other boards too, because I think some of the other boards tend to lean on Zoom more than
They
we
do,
do, so.
yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Andy. Sorry, I didn't read
All
that. Okay. All right, committee resignations, Council on Aging, Board of Directors, Jan Geddes.
Make a motion, we accept the resignation again. Yes.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Then we have Board of Assessors reconfiguration. So I'm just gonna read through the reconfiguration. Denise Kopaz resign effective June 20th, 2023. Joanne Buffington moved from regular meeting to regular member to alternate member. Wendy Walsh will move from alternate member to regular member. W. Davis Hobbs reappointment for second term effective July 1st of this year. And that is it.
So I make a motion, we accept the Board of Assessor reconfiguration as presented.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Committee reappointments, we have Cultural Committee, Charles McVinney, and 1651 Forest Advisory Committee, Henry Lind.
Can I ask-
Yes.
Before we go on, can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
On the Board of Assessor reconfiguration. I would do a letter to Denise, is that correct?
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
Okay,
and for the Council on Aging, right? With Jan.
Yeah.
yeah, I knew Jan, I know, but I'm
Okay.
sure on Denise, okay,
Thank you, Art.
thank you.
I make a motion, we reappoint Charles McVinney to the Cultural Committee and Henry Lynn to the 1651 Forest Advisory
Yeah.
Committee.
I have just one question to ask.
Yes.
I'll second it. Then I can ask. a question. We, I think our charter says 3 terms, but you can go beyond that if there's no other applications.
Correct.
Is that the case with, on my glasses here, with Henry Lynn?
Right, on 1651.
I'm guessing it is, they wouldn't have sent it to us,
Mhm.
but
We can.
you're right, it doesn't specifically say that, but I'm,
I mean, I have no problem. I mean, it meets, if there was no other applications and we have trouble in
Mhm.
many committees, and how many people know of 1651? It meets our requirements. That's the only reason, that's the only thing.
Mhm.
If that's the case, I'm fine.
I mean, it's up to the board if you want to approve this or if you wanted to wait till the next meeting to.
It's fine.
Good. Okay.
Let's.
All right. So we have a motion on the table, so I'm going to call the vote. All in favor?
I,
And no opposed. So the committee reappointments all go through as is. Okay,
Do the minutes.
yeah,
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of April 3rd, 2023, regular session.
I second that.
okay, all in favor?
Aye.
And I think, is that the one? I believe I was not here for that, so I am going to abstain from that vote because I don't think I watched the minute. Okay. So I'm abstaining from that one.
Okay,
Great. I am going to see if Jackie wants to do a town manager's report.
There wasn't too much in the town manager's report that I think is of interest to the community yet. We have, we are in the final round of the For Town Health ARPA grant, and we're hoping to secure that, but it still is waiting for a vote of the Cape Cod Commission. No. County commissioners, the county commissioners. So that will be early May. So we'll know finally that early May. We have hired a new director of health and the environment, Hillary Greenberg Lemos. She will be starting with us, I believe, the second week in May. But do not despair, Jane will be sticking with us as a consulting wastewater specialist, consulting environmental specialist. That's the term that we have
To get a little name.
environmental specialist, yeah. She's gonna have a badge and everything. And I think those are the two big highlights. Could anyone think of any other that were, I think that's it. We're doing a job fair. I believe it's the week after next for DPW and summer employment.
Okay.
This, you guys are getting so many grants. It's fantastic.
Isn't it? Yeah,
I'm losing track. This one is 381,000. That's a new one.
brand new, yeah.
That's-
And that's for the 4 towns. So it's Eastham is the lead and fiscal agent, but we'll be hiring a coordinator to work on regional solutions, which will include a regional town nursing services for Provincetown, Truro, Wellfleet, and Eastham, and some regional behavioral health support and services for all 4 towns. And it'll be, organized around also the existing services that are here. So we're working with all the existing providers as well. So it's really going to be exciting, I hope.
It's great. Thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Yep.
What does a town nurse do?
So
What sort of
people
things
that
can you
lived here
expect?
40 years ago would
Yeah.
know that we used to have literally a town nurse. So if an elder needed medication management or needed a bandage changed, or if babies were born and a mother needed a maternal health visit, we had our own nurse that would be here at town hall and go off to people's homes and check in on them.
Okay.
So I don't know when it was, probably in the 80s, we replaced that with VNA services. And so we would the health agents would have a stipend amount that they could use for some of those things. But it really was nice to have town nursing services that we could rely on that didn't have to meet any other thresholds.
Mhm.
So it's going to be a version of that.
And it'll be shared through.
It'll be
the-
shared regionally. Yeah.
Okay.
Jackie, this is the grant for here, and then if we started going and so forth, then eventually be picked up by the towns. It's a cost and picked up by the towns.
Yeah, it's a 3-year grant.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. So is there any other, did we want to have any agenda item follow-up or anything? That we have a couple minutes, 4 minutes until we can go into,
All right, I have a question.
Yeah.
So we've got 2 more dog letters.
Yes.
Mhm.
2 more times.
You did it. Suzanne, your letter was great.
Oh, thanks.
But I'm not sure the 2 new letters we got,
Got the response?
yeah, because the meeting's already over.
Right.
So,
I did get an update from Karen on the process. Can I share
Yes.
that?
Yeah.
Okay.
thank you.
Wednesday of this week, the Open Space Committee will be discussing the received input and putting some recommendations to share with Conscom. And then May 2nd will be the joint work session with the Conservation Commission and Open Space. With both, it'll be both committees and it'll be in person at Town Hall.
so it's not too late then for them to make their inputs.
Karen's on, I guess I would defer to her. I mean, I think you can,
You can send letters.
Never too
Yeah,
late.
yeah,
exactly,
I
yeah.
think it's never too late to
And
send
send them
a
to
letter.
either Conscom or Open Space.
Yeah. And we can forward.
Right.
Forward those along and we enjoy hearing about it as well, so.
Yeah, I got a bunch from Keith just a bit ago where he,
You got another one?
yeah, he sent me, there must be 10 emails in each
Wow.
one he sent, or 4, he sent 1 of 4 comment letter packets. So.
4 more comment letters.
Yeah, I think
Packets,
it'll be in the
there's-
Conservation Commission's packet, and I think I had Karen
Oh, yeah,
Karen offered
sent
to
it
send
too.
those to me as well, so. I'll have some reading to do. Got 2 more minutes, wow.
2
guys.
minutes.
Well, it'll take you 2 minutes to read the thing.
Yeah, okay. I will slowly let everyone know that we have one public hearing, a brief public hearing at 5:30, and then we'll go into town meeting after that. So I'm going to slowly read the legal notice. This is a public hearing for new seasonal all alcohol license, common victular license, and entertainment license for Little Overhead Cafe, 4900 State Highway. The town of Eastham will hold a public hearing at 5:30, Monday, April 24th, 2023, at the Eastham Town Hall in the Earl Mountain Room, 2500 State Highway, and by remote participation on the proposed new common victular license and new all alcohol license for Little Overhead Cafe located at 4900 State Highway in Eastham. The link to join this meeting will be published as part of the agenda for the select board meeting on April 24th, 2023, which can be found on the town's website at www.eastham-ma.gov. Abutters notices were mailed out April 5th, 2023. A legal ad was placed in the Provincetown Independent on 4/12/23, and the owner has paid the appropriate licensing fees. Okay. So we're going to, there was some concern about the completeness of the application, so we're gonna move this for
Well,
discussion.
Yeah, you want me to address it? So the seasonal all alcohol and the seasonal common vic, the new licenses, they were heard, I mean, they were publicly notified. We've received abutters notices for those. The new seasonal entertainment license was filed a little bit late to get in the newspaper, so that will be on your next meeting's agenda. So what I am suggesting is that you take the new seasonal all alcohol, which I know is going to be a discussion for us, and the new seasonal entertainment license, and open and close that hearing, postponing it to the next. Or you can do everything together, but if they want to open with their common vic to get their food inspections, we could do it. You could do that one.
There was some questions around that as well, and I think the members of the board, maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, would feel more comfortable doing all 3 licenses at the same
Are
time.
your applicants here, though?
Yeah, they're here.
I'm comfortable just doing the very.
Okay.
Wait,
So
you guys are comfortable? on the
Yeah.
victular license?
I'm gonna open it up first to the board for questions around the common victular license then.
Well,
Is
why
there
don't we,
questions? If
I
not,
guess let them
present
well,
first.
Present the whole.
But yeah, we'll just say that we're hearing the common vic, not the alcohol or the entertainment.
Okay,
At this
So
time.
then do you want to present to that then first?
Yeah, so the plan is, we have a food truck, food trailer that we're hoping to put on the property and use for a breakfast food trailer. So we're gonna be serving kind of standard breakfast food, coffee, that sort of deal. That's the basic gist of it. We have the retail store next door, so we're just kind of hoping to tie it all in together and have a new breakfast spot in Eastham for people to come to.
There
So,
was-
oh, go ahead, Art.
So I sat in on the planning board meeting when this was approved by them.
Yep.
Could you go back over the parking again? Because there's still some concern that, you have the business that's next to you, then your business, and then this food truck. How is the parking going to work?
Yeah, we have 13 spots in the front parking, and then there's 10 spots in the back, and there's a couple that we're planning on retaining. So in total, there's 23 spots on our portion of the property,
A total of how many, sorry?
23.
Okay, in here it said 30, so I just want to clarify on that. Because in your application, you have 30 spots.
Okay.
So that's, I'm gonna have to get 23.
So when you say I understand the ones in the front, when you say the ones in the back. Okay, so you're going around the left-hand side of the building to come into that, or the right-hand side? How are you getting to the ones in the back?
There's just like a space between the two businesses that's used to be, you know, the kind of where the Dimitri's would go to and fro, and you can just drive around the back of the property and there's parking in the back there.
It's in the back on your property. Phil.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, to the left of the retail.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead, Amy.
Yeah, I had a couple questions on restrooms. What are your plans? Because there's no restrooms there.
Well, we have a restroom in the retail space, and I've contacted the Board of Health and the plumbing inspector. We're kind of, and we talked about this in the planning board meeting as well. We're kind of unsure exactly what's required, if we can have a porta potty, or, you know, what the restroom requirement's gonna be for that type of business.
Is it on well, do you know, or town water?
We're on town water.
Oh, you're on town water,
Yeah.
okay. And what's your kind of plan for how the trailer will come and go?
The trailer's just gonna stay. It's gonna be to the right of the building, just on the lawn there.
Yeah, see, I had talked with Susie in the Board of Health, and I know you haven't gone to them yet, but I believe that it's not just Eastham, that food trucks they have to go to an approved kitchen,
Well, we have
the
a,
food storage.
yeah, we have an approved kitchen that we use the Methodist Church in Wellfleet for. We have a lease with them that we're using for to have the offsite kitchen.
But that's where you have to take the trailer to, I believe, every night, because you can't dump the wastewater on site, and there's other,
Yeah.
you know, issues with that, so,
That's where it can go.
yeah.
So yeah, go ahead, Jackie.
I'm sorry, I think in hearing this, not to be fair or unfair to you, I don't want to cause you any harm, no harm or foul here, but I think it's too soon to go for a common vic if we haven't done the health inspection and even that, the whole sanitary code thing. So you need to do that first, really.
Yeah, I was just under the impression that we had to do the comment. I mean, we've submitted
Yeah,
to the Board of Health, the permit, and I was under the impression we had to go through the common vic before they were going to do their.
it's sort of simultaneous. I mean, the board can go ahead and vote it pending approval from the health department if you want to. But it sounds like we have some hoops
Yeah,
first.
I mean, since you're coming back anyway for the other,
I would think it would be in the applicant's best interest to wait to do all three together and iron out some of these issues.
and I guess we can bring up other concerns too, or questions. Also the menu. We want to, like, especially for if you're gonna go for an alcohol license, we want a little more complete menu for food. Because you can't just serve alcohol and no food.
We
at
did
the-
provide a food menu, I believe, for the.
Well, it just has it has 4 items, but you have the breakfast menu.
Yeah.
But then for the other ones, oysters in the half shell, little necks in the half shell, shrimp cocktail, chips and salsa, and tacos variety. So we want to see an actual menu of what,
Like a nighttime.
Yeah.
Yeah.
you know, not every ingredient, obviously, but you know what I mean?
I
Um,
do think it would look similar to our breakfast menu. We're not planning on running a whole restaurant out of this food trailer. It would be tacos, breakfast burritos, and then, but we're like happy to iron that out a bit more.
Yeah, because with an alcohol license, you need a full menu.
Right.
So if it's okay with the applicant, I would see about bumping all 3 till the next meeting. If that, how do you guys feel about that?
Do we have any other questions?
Yeah, I'd love to hear all the questions
Okay.
that you all have, just so next meeting we can have your answers for you.
Yeah.
Can you just, one of the things you told the planning board was how you're going to configure this, you know, number of tables, et cetera. Could you just explain to all of us what the plan is?
Yeah, so it's just, there's gonna be a number of picnic tables out there. I would say between 6 and 10 would be our plan, or 6 and 8 picnic tables. And as far as like the enclosed area goes, we already have a fence running down kind of the north side of the lawn there. And we were planning on extending, especially if we're gonna end up doing alcohol, to enclose it, extend another fence towards the tree line there that runs parallel, or the fence would run parallel with Route 6. And it can all be fenced and boxed in there on that
So
property.
that would be the plan, the all fenced in.
I mean, yeah, especially if we're gonna do alcohol and
And
Yeah.
that fence line closest to Route 6 is a little over 60 feet away from Route 6. So the actual physical enclosed area is about 50 by 50 on all sides. With a fence closing off the parking lot from the enclosed area, as well as enclosed in front, behind, to the side of that food trailer. So it'd be a completely enclosed space.
For the next meeting, it would be really helpful to have a map, an actual drawn map of that.
Yeah, just because the maps.
Fences, picnic tables. the
Yeah,
whole- Yeah.
Yeah, because some of the verbiage in here isn't
It
in
doesn't
line
match.
with what the plan is, it sounds like. So I think a physical map that could be attached. to
We,
the
we,
license.
we always ask for a seating chart.
Mhm.
Sure. Out of curiosity, is there a limit on the amount of tables that we can have in the space?
That's a Board of Health question.
Okay. Okay.
One,
Go ahead, Jerry.
hours of operation. No, you want the food service from 7 AM to 2 PM. And then if you do the alcohol, then you're gonna have to open up the food service again,
right.
correct? So I think we want to make sure
Gonna start.
when we're taking up all three, that you have the times and so forth that
Yeah, I think
want
it-
all together so we can fully understand that.
Yeah, and the alcohol license was, mainly geared towards entertainment, which is gonna be, something we're gonna start off with like once every couple weeks and feel it out. It's not like every night, we're not gonna be running the food trailer at night. It's gonna operate as a breakfast food trailer. And we just want to have the option, if we're gonna do entertainment, an art show, have some acoustic music, that sort of thing, that we can serve drinks when we do gatherings like that. It's not like a nightly thing we're looking to add to the food trailer.
I think we would still want the hours of food
Yeah,
to reflect that.
Yeah, it would be the same as,
And one thing to consider too, if it is just events too, that we do offer event.
Yeah, we do
permits.
one day liquor license,
Yeah, so that is something too to consider if it's not something that's.
and you
Oh,
can
no.
get quite a number every year. I was talking to somebody and they seem to,
I don't know how many.
You have another question? Go ahead, Art.
Just depending on what you're trying to accomplish. It gets a lot more difficult when you add the alcohol. And then when you go for the entertainment, because the entertainment starts to impact the neighbors. So, I mean, if what you want to do is at some point in time determine, maybe we should have entertainment, maybe we should have alcohol. You might want to just go for the victual license for the cafe. See how that works. And then if you want, come back later, but it will make it more difficult to get the approval. Not that it won't, but there's a lot more hoops and steps you gotta go through to get there.
Yeah, we're happy to just get one approved. That would be amazing if we could. And we can push those off. We can answer as many questions, jump through as many hoops as we need to before those were able to be passed, if they were passed. That's not, it doesn't have to be an all or nothing sort of thing for us.
You understand, just so that you understand, and you've got to decide, if that's what you want to do, but.
do you happen to be on, I should know, I should have looked at on the Board of Health's agenda this week.
I've been in touch with the Board of Health since like November, talking about this project. And my impression was it was kind of waiting for this to go back to the Board of Health. We had the planning board meeting last week. And then my impression was it was this, and then we'd work with the Board of Health to finalize everything. So
If it
I'm
makes-
sure the big thing that the Board of Health is waiting for was the planning board decision, because was all or nothing,
Ah,
right? So
Okay, if it makes you feel better, of these things kind of like, they
Yeah,
do
yeah.
this, and then there's always a little,
Yeah, and
it's
it's
this
new.
dance
I get it.
every time, so,
Where would the entertainment be on the map? I'm looking at the map you submitted.
Yeah, I think also, if we are gonna be doing this the next meeting, Jerry will ask a couple more questions.
Oh,
and then-
okay.
Cause we do have the whole town meeting to do.
All right, well, they just wanted to hear some
Yeah, yeah.
questions, so that would be one, okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Next meeting.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Basically walk us through it and, also-
Maps,
Maps.
menus.
Maps are good.
Where's entertainment?
and they can reach out to you in the interim too, to, for
Absolutely.
guidance on the details, cause Jackie knows how we operate and what we're looking for, so. All right. So then, I don't think, do we need to vote then, or we'll just be?
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we. Is it recess the public hearing
Well,
or
is it
suspend?
possible, sorry, I just want to clarify to make sure that we have all the information that we need to come back. We need to get a more thorough food menu. We need to get our hours situated for the cafe and anything else. The movement of the food truck, check with the Board of Health for that, for the bathroom. Was there anything else besides coming?
Maps.
Totally,
Little
but
map.
coming next meeting with those,
Right.
of course, but otherwise, like, if we get all of those questions ironed out, do you all have anything else for us that you can see that would be pressing to come with that info? I just hate to come next time and then.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And any
Parking
abutter, any
spaces,
abutter
yeah.
concerns, so that would
Butters,
be the.
yeah, if I mean, it always helps to get letters from abutters too,
Mhm.
I mean, I've been through this process and we have abutters in my business that I have in Orleans that I help manage, and getting letters from your neighbors always helps. Or talking to them, so that's also something to think about.
And I can-
They're notified though as well, right?
right.
I can send you a link to the last entertainment hearing that we had,
Yeah,
which
that would
was
also-
only our last meeting,
Meeting, yeah.
which had a lot of abutter concerns. So we're coming off of that. So
Sure.
just to let you know on that.
Okay.
And our next meeting isn't until May 22nd
I was gonna,
because of town meeting,
right,
so,
is that, that is what it is then?
yep, that's our next one.
Mhm.
Okay. It's right after the election.
So what do you- how are we doing?
Yeah, so we reset, how do we say that with the public hearing?
Continue it.
Continue it.
Continue the public hearing, yeah.
We rarely do
And
this.
just so you know, so May 22nd, if they vote your common vic, you'll have that immediately, like literally the next day. So you'd be all set for Memorial Day. The alcohol may have to go to the ABCC and back, so that might take a little longer. But common vic and entertainment are immediate, as soon as we type them up and the board signs them.
All right, so I'll make a motion to continue the public hearing for Little Overhead Cafe for the new seasonal all alcohol, new seasonal common victular license, and new seasonal entertainment license until May 22nd,
One second.
2023.
One second.
And is there any other questions from you guys, or is that good? Good, okay, then I will call the vote, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So it is time to go to the next meeting within a meeting.
And our moderator is here.
So then, just from a process standpoint, Jackie, do I have to read anything here?
No,
Okay, so we're
It's
just,
good now. You're
moving in.
done with all your public
I'm
hearings.
Oh, can I,
All right, I'm handing it off.
You guys good from here?
Yeah.
Absolutely, yes. We are moving into pre-town meeting.
Ooh, we have a lot of people on screen,
yeah,
19 people.
So now, okay, and so Rich, you'll pay attention if anyone raises their hand. Okay. Great.
Great. Good evening, everybody. My name is Scott Carey. I'm the town moderator. I'd like to welcome everybody to our pre-town meeting get together. Just a couple of things I wanted to touch base on as we get prepared for a week from Saturday. Couple of things. I'm going to ask Jackie to speak to clarification around an override, and so more of a little bit of an educational for everybody. But I also wanted to take a minute because I don't know if some of you come across this on social media. there's been some people making some comments about social media, and I just want to clear up a couple of things. The reasoning for the town meeting being moved to Saturday was not for any other reason other than the school gymnasium is not available right now due to the construction of the school. So there's some people put some reasons on social media. I know Amy probably saw some of that stuff,
Right.
but it's very unfortunate when people make almost slanderous comments about the board. And I just wanted to let you know that the board is making those decisions based upon the fact that the gym is not available. So anybody that thinks that Saturday was trying to box out somebody from being in there is inappropriate. And I just wanted to clarify that, so we're all on the same page. And so what I thought we would do tonight with what we've done in the past few years is we'll kind of do an overview of the articles, the process, and people have specific questions. We'll invite the various people that might be able to speak to that. If it's not something that I feel comfortable dealing with, if it's a finance question or so on and so forth, the board may want to say something, so we can kind of do that. We'll avoid kind of getting into pros and cons on the issue, more of an educational and the process type of thing. I think what we're here for tonight. So I just, because there's overrides on the budget, I thought, Jackie, and we talked earlier today, maybe just kind of give people an overview of what is an override, what it applies to, because it applies to some articles, but it doesn't apply necessarily to the overall operating budget. I just thought if you could take a couple minutes.
Okay, thank you. So I think there's a misunderstanding or miscommunication about what Proposition 2.5 is. And it was a law. It's actually Massachusetts General Law 59 something. And it was established in 1980 to set limits on how any town in the state could add to the levy, could raise property taxes without permission from the voters in 1 year. And it was 2.5% of last year's levy limit, plus new growth, plus new revenue, plus excluded debt. So that's why it's not 2.5% of last year's budget. It's 2.5% of the levy limit with all of those other things included. And it is confusing. So we try to explain it, but it is confusing. So when you see a debt exclusion, it means that we are asking you to allow us to raise the taxes to pay for that specific thing over a period of years and add that to the levy, right? If you see the term override, it means that we're asking the voters to give us more than 2.5% for a specific purpose or for a general purpose. In this year's override, for instance, is a general override to fund staff salaries for 3 years for our newly negotiated contracts and to fund a school cost override. So we've added those two together to $710,000. So 550 is the general operating budget for salaries and 160 is for the school override. I'm going to just make one more comment. So in the operating budget, that $130,000 for the school is added into that. So when we're saying a 4.89% increase in the budget, that override, if you approve it, is included in that. If not, we'll have to subtract that. So not to make something not clear even murkier, but that's the best I can do.
I think you did great. Thank you very much. Couple other things, and I was in front of the board a couple of weeks ago and been up to the high school a number of times. And if people are watching at home as well, I'm just encouraging everyone to please make plenty of time on the morning, Saturday morning, because there are going to be some spots that we're up close to the building that are not going to be available. So if somebody who may be walking challenged, the police are going to everything that they can to make it as smooth as possible. But just, just want to give everybody the heads up that maybe a little bit extra time next Saturday, a week from Saturday will be necessary. And again, just as we start to look out at the forecast, I'll be making, any weather-related calls in conjunction with, Jackie and the police department. But we'll knock on wood that it all goes smooth a week from Saturday and we'll be able to go forward. But just so everyone's aware that, that's one of the elements out there. So, so before we kind of dive into any, does anybody in the audience or at home have any specific questions about the process of the event? I don't know if anybody's new to town meeting, but if there's any overall questions that anybody might have about, how it works or anything like that, I'm happy to take those. I don't see, oh, yes, ma'am.
Really basic question, first time meeting participant. I know it starts at 10. Is there an end time?
4:30, 5 o'clock. No, well, I think they usually go about 2 hours. Give it-
2 to 3 hours.
Bring snacks.
Yeah.
Bring
And,
snacks.
and clothes, like, we don't know. I mean, up until 2 days before, we won't know whether it's going to be 80 or 42. So, dress in layers. We do have tents, but still.
We're very excited. You'll enjoy it.
Welcome.
Great, okay. Anybody from, Rich, you see anybody at home or, no? Okay. So with that being said, everybody's got the warrant and you'll be getting one in the mail. And one of the nicest parts about the warrant I always find is you'll get the report of the select board at the beginning. Kind of gives you a lay of the land of what they're thinking and, since they put the budget together in correlation with the various committees around town and Jackie, so that kind of gives you their kind of the lay of the land from their point of view, followed by the report of the finance committee. And they kind of give you their thoughts and comments and opinions about how they looked at the warrant and all the articles within. But I think those are really nice things to kind of lead you off. And I know that there's opportunities if you have questions for the select board or the finance committee on the day, we can kind of work those in. So if anybody has any specific questions on their reports, we're certainly willing to put them on the spot to if need be. And so then you kind of get into your table of contents, we list out the articles, which will be the kind of the menu of the day that we'll go through. After some, protocols that we do before we get started. So we'll kind of just, unless the select board has anything overarching to any of you would like to make any comments or Jamie?
I don't think so. I think just one quick thing that I think is important is that I was just informed we are coming up with a final transportation plan for folks that are, that have some disability or trouble walking to the front since the parking's gonna be limited. So that'll be put on social media so people are aware of how to arrive and how to leave.
Great. Thank you, Jamie. Anybody else from the board? Great. So we'll just kind of go through and I'll just kind of read out the article for tonight and we'll just, if anybody has any thoughts or comments, we'll kind of roll through this and see where we go. So Article 1, and I always consider these first few are sort of like house cleaning items, or the first one's sort of a house cleaning item. But anybody has a question on that, sort of? Okay, seeing none. And then Article 2A is, the general fund operating budget for the town. And you can kind of see, we break this up into categories and when we go on at town meeting, we'll divide them up into sections and then we'll, take questions on the budget as a whole, and then we'll do individual sections. For instance, I might get to a point where somebody says under unallocated expenditures, somebody might have a question, so that would be a section. We'll kind of have those divided up, so you'll be able to follow along and see if somebody raises their hand or has a question or comment in one of the sections after we look at the budget as a whole. I don't know if anybody has a question about, I see a question. Well, why don't we start with Mary Shaw?
I just want to comment that under the summary for Article 2A at the bottom, Community Preservation Committee, in regard to the CPA funding of an administrative position is included in line 16.
Also, if someone's gonna ask a question, can they come to a microphone so the people
Yeah, we have them up.
yeah,
Yeah.
so just so the people at home and on
Hear the
Zoom can
questions. Yeah,
hear their
once-
question.
All right.
Cancel.
Thank you for pointing that out, Mary. Jackie, is that something that at town meeting, I would make a comment to say that that's just so, can I make a note that I want to do that, or is that?
You can, it explains, line 16 is community development, and we've added a halftime position that's funded with CPA funds in that position, so people may ask the question because there's nothing in line 15, so it can't possibly be line 15 because there's no addition there. My sense is how usually people do it when they ask questions at town meeting is that they will look at the budget and they'll say, how come line 16 is $61,000? Like what makes up that amount? Those are the types of questions we usually get. So you can point it out. We updated the lining, the numbering of the budget, and we forgot to go back over the summary, and that's why there's a difference there.
Thank you, Mary. Carolyn, did you have a question? You want to come up to the mic, or you want
It's a quick one. My question is that under public safety, it looks like there's projected to be a 0.05% increase. So does that mean there's no salary increases for any of those departments?
It means that there's step increases for those departments, and in public safety, we also had some retirements, so we're hiring, less experienced patrol or fire officers to take those places. So there's step increases, but no COLA increases. They're included in the other article, which is, I'm sorry, 2C.
Okay. Any other questions on the budget as a whole? Or- Yes, ma'am. You want to come on up?
Hi there, just a question about for the 160,000 increase for the school budget. What's that for?
I'll do it unless you. So it's basically three items. One was the elementary school had an increase because there is a special needs student that needs out of school placement. So that's expensive, and that is for this year alone, right? The tech budget is up, not particularly because it increased a great deal, but because we have 4 extra students that are going to the tech. So that increases that line item. And the Nauset school budget is up because their central office, the regional, not salaries, but administrative costs, transportation, all of those costs were much higher inflation this year. And then the third big element is there's more kids leaving the district that we're paying to go to other schools, charter schools or other schools. So those 3 items together. So it's a cluster of things, really.
Anybody else on the budget? Okay. Seeing none at home, Rich? Okay. So we'll take a look at Article 2B. Anybody questions, concerns on?
You can do all the cap.
All right, I don't see any, so we'll kind of move to 2C. Okay, thank you. So seeing none there, we'll move over to Article 3A, which is the 5-year capital plans presented by the select board.
And the 5-year capital plan is really just, other than this year is a fixed expense, but the capital plan is really our planning tool to let you know what might be coming. It's not fixed in stone, and we can move, those costs will move around from year to year.
I have a question.
Oh, come on.
Maybe I just missed it in the fine, maybe I just missed the fine print. But in fiscal year 2026, there's a $92 million bond. What is that for?
90 million of it
Is
is
it on
a,
17, page 17?
It's on page 21.
Oh, okay.
90 million is for an anticipated wastewater implementation project, and then 2 million would be engineering and design of roadways for Route 6 project, if that were to proceed.
Okay, thank you, Rich. Article 3B is the capital budget. Jack, you want, or Rich, you want to say a minute or two on that?
Yeah, capital budget represents, based on this 5-year capital plan that we do. We go through, and anything that's reflected on, 3A in FY24 is made it to the point of we're ready to move on the project. And so 3B represents the funding associated with, what we are, the actual projects we're anticipating doing in FY24. So, it is a little bit, it's broken out a little bit finer than just 3B. 3B represents the things that we're self-funding. So mostly from free cash. We also contribute about $400,000 of our tax levy to our capital budget each year. So you'll see that in there, and there could be other funds. A big one, for example, would be our ambulance fund, pays for a lot of our EMS type requests. However, there are things in our 5-year capital plan that require bonding, and so forth. Therefore, you see those in Articles 3B and 3C. I'm sorry, 3C and 3D. So B is the things that we can do ourselves, self-funding, and 3C and D represent items in the capital plan that'll be borrowed, anticipated to be borrowed. Because of the order of magnitude, the cost of the items are enough that we don't keep sufficient resources on hand to do them.
Thank you, Rich. I don't see any questions. So Article,
Well, there's a,
oh, sorry, yes, sir.
Sorry, my eyes are bad. Is this 1.859 on the bottom of page 23? Does that show up somewhere in the budgets that's on 12 and 13, or is that a separate?
It's additional, it's separate.
Separate money.
Thank you.
So a point of clarification on articles, budgets in Article 2, those are things that are annual recurring budgets. And so we differentiate them because Article 2 represents operating budgets, annual recurring expenses that we fund with annually recurring revenues. We want to make sure they're structurally sound. Article 3 money is the capital budget. So Article 3, we could use one-time sources because they're one-time sources of expenses or infrequent expenses.
Great, thank you. Great question, great answer. So,
Can I ask a question?
yeah, absolutely.
That was me. In maybe 1 minute or less, could you explain free cash
Oh,
to everyone? Well, I feel like everyone, it's a great.
So
'cause
free
it
cash,
gets, and it's not free.
free cash is what the state certifies an amount of available surplus each year. And they call it free cash. What it really represents is unused appropriations from the prior year. So we're on Article 2A, we have a $38 million budget. If we only spend 37 million of that 38, because there are some, elements of conservatism within our budget. And we always say it's not necessarily what you budget, it's what you actually spend. So we spend a lot of time focusing on the spending, making sure we're spending appropriately. So if we spend 37 of the 38 million, we have $1 million of unused appropriations. That doesn't go to waste. It becomes surplus, and that surplus becomes what the state certifies as free cash. And that's what we rely on and utilize to fund our capital budget. We're heavily reliant on free cash or annual surpluses to fund our capital plan. Likewise, of our $38 million budget, we also have $38 million of revenues. As in response to your question, if we're going to have an annually recurring cost, there needs to be an annually recurring revenue that is going to fund it. We don't fund things with one-time sources. So if we budget $38 million of revenues, but we collect $39 million of revenue, we've got $1 million of a revenue surplus. So any appropriation or budget surpluses and any revenue surpluses, there are surpluses that sit in our general fund. And at the end of the year, by law, we have to submit financial statements and reports to the state. And through those reports, they will go through a process to determine what they're going to certify as free cash. And that's basically our unreserved general fund surplus. So we use free cash in town here to fund our capital plan, to fund our reserves, and any other things that come about that we need to address that aren't part of the annual operating budget. If those things come about often enough and they need to be part of the annual operating budget, then we'll add them into the budget and try to figure out a way to fund them with recurring revenues. And sometimes that's why you need an override, because there are no other recurring revenues, but you've got to add things that cost more than a 2.5% increase in a year.
That's good. And I just want to add one more thing, because this always was confusing to me, is even though it's certified as free cash, it will sit there until you appropriate it at town meeting for some purpose. In other words, we can't spend any money without town meeting's approval. So it's either in the budget or it's certified as free cash, and then we'll use it in next year's budget. And that's kind of how it flows based on.
Great, thank you, and thank you for the great question, Suzanne. So we'll move into Article 3C. Rock Harbor dredging.
Let me just.
Yeah, if you want to.
So this is we share Rock Harbor with the town of Orleans, and every 10 years we do a maintenance dredging of Rock Harbor. There's a lot of shoaling. It's highly tidal and there's a lot of shoaling, so it requires once every 10 years or so a dredge. Last year it filled in and we had to do an emergency mini dredge, which the town of Orleans paid for, hoping that we would reimburse them the following year. So that is included in this amount. But the dredge and all its procurement is shared between the two towns.
Great.
And I just wanted to add, Scott, this and the next 3D are debt exclusions. And just to add on what Jack had mentioned earlier, a debt exclusion does raise property taxes for the amount of the debt service on these borrowings, but only for the time and only for the purpose of the debt service on the borrowings. So when the debt service is paid, the ability to raise those taxes goes away as well.
Great, yeah, and you'll see that when you look in the beginning of this will be on your ballot, you'll see this referenced at the beginning of the warrant, which will ties into this article. It also tie into Article 3D, and I'll ask any questions from the board or comments on the board on 3D.
Let me give a little.
You want to give a little, yeah.
So basically, the town has been working on its wastewater plan since 2008, Jane? 2008. And we have been doing all kinds of smaller work leading up to this large piece. So part of it has been to explore any options or technologies that would help prevent us from needing a wastewater system, a formal system. But most of it has been research on what exactly the impairment of the water bodies are and how best to address it. And we've had a set of consultants, a couple of different sets of consultants looking at this for all those years. At this point, we have a draft wastewater management plan. that is ready to go to the Department of Environmental Protection. And so this article basically asks to continue that process and actually design a small wastewater and collection system for a portion of the town that most affects the watershed in question, Salt Pond, and also provides a permanent permeable reactive barrier that will help block nitrogen from going into Salt Pond. We have a pilot project that's done really well. It's removed almost 86% of the nitrogen flowing its way. So we're going to invest in the more permanent solution. It also includes stormwater and wastewater. In our stormwater in particular for two of our town landings, Collins and Hemingway, and for Salt Pond and several other sites. And some investigation of IA systems. And the reason we're asking this year, the reason it's important this year is twofold. One is there are all kinds of monies available right now from the state, the county, and the federal government to help us pay for these things. And I'm very afraid that if we wait, those sources of revenue will not be there. And they include 0% loans from the state revolving fund, which is helping us pay for water now, which will help us pay for wastewater. The county Cape and Islands Water Protection Fund, which will give us towards the capital costs at least a 15% reduction. So they'll give us 15% of the total cost of any construction. And the USDA is stepping up to contribute towards the stormwater and some of the other projects. So it's a good time to do it. But the better reason even is that the state of Massachusetts DEP has proposed new regulations that would require towns without a wastewater management plan to require every resident in a nitrogen sensitive area to upgrade to innovative alternative septic systems, whether you just got your Title V yesterday or you have a cesspool from 40 years ago, it won't matter. And so we believe strongly that this is a community problem and needs a community solution, it shouldn't be based on individual taxpayers having to come up with $40,000 or $50,000 to upgrade their systems. We should collectively try and work out this problem together. And I'm now convinced after doing the math the other day that it is honestly cheaper to do the community solution than it would be to upgrade everyone's septic system. So that's the short reason. And if anyone has any technical questions, Ms. Crowley is here to answer those.
And just, as I said, I think one of the, things that I like to do as a moderator is point out things that I think are helpful to the public. And there is quite a comprehensive write-up on this article in your warrant. So if you're at home and you don't have your warrant, it goes, all page 25 and 26 is, it's very informative. And it helps you make a decision that you're comfortable with after. And I think there's a fair amount of presentation there. So.
And Mr. Moderator, I'm so sorry. I forgot the most important thing. And that is our brilliant finance director has figured out a way to pay the debt service on this article from recurring funds, our short-term rental tax funds. So therefore, even though we are asking for your permission to borrow and exclude this debt, we believe it will not affect the tax rate, this almost $6 million borrowing, because we have almost $1 million a year in short-term rental tax money that we will apply to that debt service.
Yeah, I just want to follow up a couple of things on what Jackie said is in order to access all these funds that are maybe available to us to reduce the cost of the Suzanne, I'm sorry, no, someone in the audience had asked, what's the $90 million? The ultimate construction of a wastewater collection system and treatment plant would be quite significant. So the devil's in the details of how we get there. It's going to cost us what it costs, but can we use other people's money to pay for that cost. The only way to access other people's money, the federal and the state government, is to have, I hate the term, but it's what everybody calls a shovel-ready project. We need our engineering and design done and ready to go and can demonstrate to these other funding sources that we're ready to move on a project. We can't ask anybody to commit, for example, $90 million to us and not have done the design and not done our homework. So this is kind of the entree into that, an effort being able to do that. And don't pump me up too much yet, because I don't want to, end up falling short, but we do everything we've done in Article 2 and Article 3 and our 5-year capital plan is done deliberately with a plan. And that plan, from day one, when I first arrived in town, was what was new to the town was the collection of the short-term rental tax for third-party rentals in town, which is up over $1.1 million for this year. And in talking with the select board and with Jackie, we deliberately have not utilized the vast majority of that. We have utilized some for a couple of things, but some of those things will be going away. But the vast majority of that $1 million+ is going to be available, has never been used to fund the operating budget, which is why we've generated good free cash. It's why we've been able to get our reserve balances to where they are and where they're supposed to be. And now that we've done those things, now it's going to be available to pay for this debt service. So to the earlier question on the debt exclusion, you raised the debt exclusion and the ability to raise the debt, raise the property taxes to pay for this debt service, but only if you actually have to pay for the debt service. So if we're using, just for sake of argument, if the debt service on this $6 million is $1 million a year, and we have $1 million of short-term rental money available for us to use it, we will not be able to raise property taxes also the $1 million. The $1 million from the short-term rentals will pay for it and the taxes will not go up. And then what we need to do once we get through this planning effort and get closer to perhaps implementing a permanent solution, there's more work that needs to be done on the financing of that. But a good element of that would be transitioning, is paying off this design and engineering money and no longer have that behind us, repurpose the short-term rental taxes for the bigger debt service, and also looking at debt drop off from our water project, because starting in FY26 and just 2 years, some of our first bonds from the water project will have been paid off, and the amount of taxes needing to be raised to pay for the water project will become less. And maybe that's an opportune time, depending on what the level of tax burden is in town, to repurpose that to go forward on the larger wastewater project. So it's a matter of, can we use other people's money to finance this in the long term? Can we utilize our short-term rentals, and can we manage our debt drop off so that we don't see a huge spike in tax burden because of all these big costs that are coming down the pike?
Great. Thanks, Rich. Art.
Just to kind of summarize what Jackie and Rich said, we're going to be talking about wastewater a lot in the coming years. The administration and Jackie have, if you're on our flashes, have started to give some information and explain the whole wastewater situation and the watershed management. So you need to pay attention and get those and listen to those, but you're going to be hearing a lot more about wastewater. So you need to be ready for that.
Couple of questions. Any one of you want to go to the mic? And we should probably get into the habit of telling us your name and address, because we will be doing that at town meeting, so we might as well.
Sure. My name is Tom Troiano and I live on Quaison Court. I just want to make sure that I understood everything. I really appreciate that, but it's a little bit head spinning when you don't live and breathe this every day. So is the net of this 3D that we're gonna sell bonds for this $6 million, with the debt service on those bonds, we have the money in an account that we are ready to pay for that. So there's really no additional cost, and I hate to use this word, but this isn't like a Prop 2.5 override where your taxes are going to go up for 5 years for this very specific thing. In this case, it's bonds and the money is already there to pay the debt service. Is that an accurate reflection of everything I just heard?
Yeah.
That's
the plan.
That's the plan. And the reason for the debt exclusion, however, is we need the backstop. We need to know that, if interest rates, are relatively moderate now, but if interest rates were 10%, we might have a problem paying that debt service with just the short-term rentals. We're not anticipating that, but again, it's a backstop. So the debt exclusion provides a backstop to ensure that they can be paid for, which hopefully will give us a better bond rating as well. When there's reassurance of funding sources to pay for debt, you tend to get a higher bond rating. But that being said, when the actual bill comes due, we're planning on using the short-term rental tax to pay for the debt service.
Thank you.
And there
Next.
also is an article on the warrant to establish a stabilization fund for wastewater that will transfer this year's short-term rental tax into that fund to help us. So it's like we're starting a savings account, basically.
So another, yes, ma'am, you want to come on up?
Or see, it's coming up next.
Hi, Pat McDonald, 230 Goody Hallett Drive. This may be a dumb question, but on both
question.
3C and 3D, the language is saying to appropriate or borrow the sum of, in one case, $1.8 million or any other sum. And the same thing on this 5.9 million or any other sum.
That's a great
I'm
question.
asking because
Yeah.
given our experience with the school budget, which started big and then got
Bigger.
huge,
Yeah.
I'm curious
So
what leeway that gives
the
us.
town meeting warrant is a warning. It's basically a roadmap of what exactly will be discussed at town meeting and what our plan is going into town meeting. The motions that are read on the floor by the select board when they move a question will tell you the exact amount. We can't go from that exact amount. So we have to, if it's 1.8 million and that's in the motion, then that is the absolute limit of what we can borrow. So thank you for asking that question because a lot of the legal language gives us options. So because, 6 weeks ago, we weren't sure on something, but our attorney makes us put those things in so that if the motion does change and the amount does change, we can make that change.
Okay, that's very helpful to know. Thank you. Second question, and maybe this is my lack of knowledge of the whole wastewater plan, but it's the assumption that over time we're going to have sewering for the entire town?
No. So the purpose of having the watershed, and do you want me to, I'm going to go for it, Jane, and then if you need to. The purpose of having a watershed management plan is that it allows for solving the problem, removing the levels that the state believes we need to remove of nitrogen and other
Nutrients.
minerals,
Nutrients.
nutrients. And at the same time, with the smallest footprint. So it takes what we have to clean up, adds a little bit of growth to that, and gives us, the size of the system that we have to build. So we're hoping to build this system and use the permeable reactive barriers and use some alternative technologies. So 40 years from now or 35 years from now, when phase 2 comes along, phase 2 might be much smaller. It might not need to be hooked up to the sewer. It might be a collaboration with Orleans that we're working on. So it goes the other way. So no, I don't believe there's any possibility that all 6,100 East End properties will ever be on sewer.
Okay, all right, thank you very much.
Thank you for great questions. Jim?
James discuss.
No, you did good.
Jim Russo, Massasoit Road. Is there any obligation on behalf of the Mass DOT, which is the abutter for Salt Pond and Collins Landing, and the federal government that surrounds Salt Pond? Is there any obligation, or is it this part of the management program that we have to adopt before trying to do anything with them?
I'm going to answer this question. I'm going to personally, obviously, they own it and they own a portion of the pollution that's going into Salt Pond and our other waterways. So they have a moral obligation. they don't seem to acknowledge a formal material obligation.
Mm.
So we have been working with them in every way possible to, and that's where USDA funds and some of the other funds come. I'm not saying that the town will have to pay 100%. We don't. So
Right.
we do, Jane has worked very hard to find grants and loans and to force the feds to sort of step in, and the USDA really has, to say, we'll pay for stormwater mitigation in the two town landings, Salt Pond and several of the other ponds. But you're absolutely right. And it was at a Wellfleet meeting with the DOT a few months ago. Art and I were present, and, the same issue came up. We have all kinds of bad drainage. Why aren't you helping us pay for that?
The stormwater issue is, it's all part and parcel of the same problem. We've got a certain amount of nitrogen we need to remove from each of our watersheds, which the plan that Jane's been working on kind of indicates what the level of issue is and the solutions we need to make that removal happen. In some cases, the removal can be IA systems or a permeable reactive barrier, but around the Salt Pond area, the draft plan indicates that a sewering area is needed because of the amount of removal that's needed. And to the particular question with stormwater, stormwater is just a small piece of the overall nitrogen contribution. 80% plus is septic systems
Yep.
from individual property owners.
But we do have some specific plans on Route 6 for stormwater mitigation. We've been meeting and talking about those, couple of retention ponds, some various things to help reduce that stormwater nitrogen. We are working on that.
And the map that you see in the warrant is a general scope of the phase 1.
Right. Don't,
It's not exact.
Right.
It's just to
If
give
you-
you a general idea of the area.
if your property's in it or not in the map, doesn't necessarily mean in the long run, it will be there. That's what the study's for. To figure out where this will be, but this is the general area we know now. It would be covered.
And just one more thing, if you look in the warrant, under the strategic planning section, there is a whole couple of pages around the Minister Schoolhouse Pond stormwater mitigation, which is just a phenomenal project that Jane did last year and the year before. So
Great, thank everybody. Why don't we go to Article 4A, other appropriations? Anybody has any questions?
Mr. Moderator, I'll just summarize. We talked about operating budget in Article 2, annual revenues and annual expenses. Article 3 being the capital budget. Use one-time expenditures or infrequent expenditures with one-time sources of revenue. Article 4 represents kind of the catch-all. Everything else that's not operating or capital kind of falls into Article 4. So that's why the first items are funding of reserves, for example, and some smaller level things that aren't, grant matching funds aren't a capital project. Although the overall project that's funded by a grant might be a capital project, but our matching funds aren't.
Perfect, thank you. And kind of roll along to Article 4B. Anybody at home? No? Okay. And 4C is establish and fund a wastewater capital stabilization fund.
This was what Jackie was talking about earlier about establishing the fund for the short-term rental tax money.
Okay, so set up the fund, the monies to be transferred from the short term into the stabilization fund that they can reduce the debt. It's kind of a. Okay, thank you, Jamie, for that. Okay, we have Article 4D is authorization of leases.
Mr. Moderator, just on 4D and 4E, state law limits the amount of time that we can issue a contract to 3 years. unless we have town meeting approval for specific things, and if it involves real estate as it does in 4D, we need to be specific as to the parcel. So this is our cell tower lease on town land.
So to bypass the state law.
Those cell tower
Okay.
leases are
Yeah, no,
long-term
It's to
leases.
comply with the state.
comply. You know,
I love it.
all right. Anybody have any questions on that?
Stun guns.
I just didn't understand the lease. It says that it's starts at 25,000, goes up 5% per year for the next 5 years, and then repeats itself, starting with 25,000 again. Am I understanding that right? So that a new lease would cost them less than what they're paying today?
Mm-mm.
There's no less.
No
Well,
less
I
than-
know, but that's,
Lease annual rent.
the rent is 25,000 in the first year with 5% increase each subsequent year. Up to 5 additional leases, blah, blah, blah.
No, those are subleases.
Okay,
So not uncommon, and you have one cell tower. It's not just one person on it. You might, Sprint, Verizon, AT&T, you name it. might
We get
be
money from each of them.
Each
oh,
of
for
them
each, okay.
are the minimum of 25,000.
And we have 2 towers, so we have 2 sets of leases.
Okay, so that's 4D and 4E. All right, we can look at 5A. This was what we kind of talked about earlier. There is provision in the bylaws that requires the town meeting to be in the town of Eastham. Select board, due to the complications with the high school over the next year or two, is asking for a town meeting to give approval to be able to make decisions based upon what's best for the town and the citizens.
And of course, the intention is to go back to the first Monday in May at 6 o'clock or whatever our evening time was for that.
And we'll know a lot more next,
Yeah.
next winter, where they're at with the high school and what's going well and so on. So
And it's
so,
only Orleans and Wellfleet.
right.
Not gonna get you going
Like
to
you're gonna
Boston
drive
or
into
Worcester or anything.
Hinterlands with salmon and stuff. Okay, I think we're good there. Article 5B.
Mr. Moderator, we do have a question.
Oh, question.
I'm going to promote Roy Maroli to the audience. Roy, you've been promoted. You have to unmute yourself.
I'm unmuted.
Okay, we
We
can
got
hear you.
Can you hear me?
We can. Go ahead.
I don't have a question. I thought there was a question for me. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
That made
You
it.
accidentally raised your hand, I think.
Oh, okay. I got it. I
Oh.
apologize.
All right, we're glad you're with us.
Thank you.
So we'll go back to 5B. Clarification, authorization on town clerk. I don't know if anybody has any questions on that. Okay. So 5C. I don't know if anybody wants to speak to this consolidation of cemetery board of commissioners.
I can speak to it.
It's all Art's fault.
Or Arterino, please.
We have a historic district commission and we had a cemetery commission. The responsibility of the cemetery commission has changed over the past years. Used to be that they maintain the cemetery. Right now, the maintenance of the cemetery is done by the DPW. And the cemetery commission, the number of members of that is continually dwindled till we ended up with 1. So we talked to the cemetery commission and we talked to the historic district. And since those are historic cemeteries, we thought it made sense to consolidate the responsibilities for those. this is the first step in doing that. To disband the cemetery commission, we have to do this. And then there's some other work we have to do, but this is the first step. So we'll consolidate all that responsibility within the Historic District Commission.
And
Not Historic District, Historic Committee.
is this for any specific cemetery in town, or is there one specific you're referring?
It's for the Cove and for the, what's it?
It's on Bridge Road.
Bridge Road.
Okay, so that does not have anything to do with Evergreen.
No.
Okay.
Private.
This is just those two cemeteries.
Any questions on that? Thank you, Art. Article 6 is petition the general court for permanent conservation restrictions. Put a nice summary in there on this article.
Basically, this was approved by town meeting in 2020, and we're bringing it back because we forgot 4 words. Petition the general court. So we have to revote the article with the words petition the general court. And this is land off of Nauset Road where the new water tower is going in. So it will, it's the land that's the 21 acres that surrounds that area.
Water tower.
Yep.
Hey, another thing that just when you are looking at your warrant, you know, tonight, and as you read it every night this week to get prepared, you'll see the if there's a vote, you know, some are a majority vote, but others are 2/3 vote. This particular one that Jackie was referring is a 2/3 majority. So and we have the little counter say help us out, and our town clerk, so we'll be able to move through those. But thank you, Jackie. So Article 7A, 7B, 7C, 7D are zoning articles. I'm sorry, 7E and 7F.
Yeah.
So 7G,
G. Yeah, it goes to G.
H,
Oh, no, H.
7H zoning, ZBA review standard. Sorry. So 7A through 7G are zoning articles. And then 7H is a zoning review standards article.
And if anyone has any questions on these, our Community Development Director, Paul Lag, is here, and Mary Need, the chairperson of the zoning task force.
Does anyone remember what day we had the presentation on this?
Oh, boy. Oh, so people could look at the meeting.
Yeah, because that, I feel like,
There is on
Meeting.
the town website, there is a town meeting page that has the warrant, but it also has all of anything that we've sent out to explain these articles is also listed on there. And Kayla Urquhart has done a nice job of organizing all those. So you can go in and see all the zoning articles, the presentation that was given to the board, everything is on that page.
wonderful. What did you say? February 6th.
Thank
Great.
you.
Thank you, Mary.
A great idea. Thank you, Suzanne, for that. Article 7H is zoning ZBA review standards, and kind of read through that and determine if you have any questions for. There'll be plenty of people, including Paul, will be at town meeting. Ready to go, right? Paul will be there.
I believe so. Yes, he's nodding his head, yes.
Excellent. Paul.
Mary will also.
Yeah, terrific. Okay. Article 8 is basically the CPA funds and the allocation thereof, of how the committee has voted based on the applications that they had, the money that they had based on the tax levy that they were able to disseminate out to the recipients in town who requested it. So that's kind of how that all works. I don't know if anybody has any specific questions on each individual award that they gave, but you can kind of read through them. Some of them are fairly standard, but some of them are new. So it's kind of exciting to see what people are looking to do in the town for the next couple of years. And our,
Hey, your hand's raised.
you're here, if anybody has any questions? Mary's here? Yeah. Anybody has any questions? Okay. Good for now, Mary. Article 9 is a petitioned article, plastic reduction. And so the way this will kind of work is that at, town meeting, petitioner will introduce the article, they'll move the article instead of the select person moving the article, the petitioner will move the article, and then we'll give them a self-amounted time to kind of lay out their case for that article. And then what we'll do is then I'll circle back to see if anybody on the board would like to make a comment, then I'll circle back if anybody on the finance committee would like to make a comment, and you'll see their votes here. And then open it up to the general public, and we'll I think we got away in the last couple town meetings of having pros and cons line. We just have come up and speak lines. So and I'll kind of do my thing, and then the job of the moderator is to make sure everybody reasonably gets to make their case for what they want to talk about, and as long as everybody just does it in a nice.
Mr. Moderator, Karen Strauss has raised her hand. I'm not sure if it's on Article 8 or 9, but I'll promote her to the audience to talk.
Oh, I hope
Okay.
she answers the question I had in my brain.
Karen, is that you?
Yep, that's me. It's
Quick
on-
question. Are you the petitioner?
I am not the petitioner.
Okay.
And I'm asking about the petition article, which is 9. So what the warrant doesn't say, and what's unclear to me, is how this petition relates to the existing chapter 60 of the Code of the Town of Eastham, which is the current plastics bylaw. Does this petition, if it passes, would it supersede that completely? Would it be integrated with that? My understanding is that the petitioners didn't even know we had that in place. So they make no provisions in the petition on how those would work together, and the notes in the warrant from the town don't discuss it at all either.
So Karen, as you know, and many people might not know, once a petitioned article is submitted, we can't change it. Only the petitioner can make changes. And so in answer to Karen's question, my best guess would be if this passes, we would send it to the Attorney General to do a review and make sure it's a legal article. And then if it comes back, it would be in addition to the bylaw we have. And if there are any overlaps that are confusing, we would have to clean that up next year.
Okay.
I'm glad you asked that question though, because I had also been wondering this. And I think one of the reasons why the select board didn't vote to recommend this article is because we wanted more information. And one of the things that I would like more information on is how does this, because I think we already accomplished some of this already as a town. And so I would be curious to have something that's maybe a little more specific. And I think the board wanted some more details about, we had a lot of questions and not a whole lot of time to review the implications of this article. So
There was also no outreach to the business community, which is, we have to do that.
Sort of essential. And I think the petitioner is not here. I don't see, but I think what he would say in response to your question about how does this fit in, he would say it goes much farther. So it goes beyond the categories that we established in the bylaw last year, and it adds even compostable and recyclable plastics. So it broadens the category to all plastics.
Right, but it also doesn't include the specific parts of the bylaw that address compostable and biodegradable standards.
Right.
Right.
supersedes it, it's later.
I'll just briefly kind of reiterate, because you can see the board did not vote in favor of this petition article either. And if you look in your warrant, under the town summary portion, it does list out the reasons why. As you know, select board is very much in favor of all efforts to reduce plastics on the Cape. But with the conflict that we're seeing with this particular article coming as in its form that it is and like Amy said, the no effort to engage with our business community. When we had our prior plastic ban that involved just water bottles and like a little more restricted, we had a public hearing, we had a lot of community engagement to work out all those details so that it was a change that was not overwhelming for the business community. And it was something that felt manageable and they felt engaged in the process. And that's how we like to proceed with a lot of these changes that are really impactful, can be cost prohibitive, they can really impact businesses. And so we felt that if this was going to happen, yes, eventually we're probably going to end up somewhere in this realm, but there needs to be an appropriate process. So that was why the board voted no on this one.
Is for the notes, who is the petitioner?
Gary Senecal.
And it, I mean, I guess just for a point of information is that this article has been on town meeting warrants across the Cape. So I think it was done by the same organization that brought us the plastic water bottle ban. And their goal was also to, do kind of a Cape-wide, have this on as many town meeting warrants as possible. And they were not as successful as doing it in 1 year, one sweep. So it's been, you'll see it around town and in the news probably.
Okay. Any specific questions on the petition article?
Mr. Moderator,
Yes.
yes,
Yes.
did have a question typed online asking why we skipped over Article 7 items, and I replied that people can feel free to raise their hand and ask a question if you're willing to go
Sure.
back. Or maybe there's some further discussion that somebody might want.
Yeah, if somebody
Maybe-
has a question, we went,
Maybe list them individually just to,
okay.
instead of just saying 7A through H.
And also in the meantime, Karen Strauss has raised her hand again, which is.
No, I did not mean to.
Okay.
Okay, so the Article 7 is the zoning questions. And so 7A is zoning definitions. 7B is zoning clear cutting bylaw.
And just raise your hand if you have a question
Right.
about any of these, whether you're remote or in person. Make sure you put your hand up as we come to something you want to speak to.
And Rich will just let me know. Article 7C is zoning setbacks. Article 7D is zoning residential lot intensity.
Here's the question.
Okay, got a question on,
Promote Tricia to the audience.
okay,
Tricia, you're online, you just unmute. There you go.
Okay, can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Great. Tricia Heim. I live on Pilgrim Lane. Actually, it was 7C. I wanted to talk to. I just wasn't quick enough on my clicking.
okay. 7C it is.
So on 7C, with the relation to adding the in-ground pool, above-ground pools, et cetera, and the hard courts too close to the property line, I guess one of my questions is related to why we went this route instead of looking at a sound enforcement thing, because I don't want to have this in my backyard, certainly, or my neighbor's backyard, I mean, but that distance is not going to make a big difference if someone has a pickleball court. But I also don't like the regulation of it. So why did we go this route?
Well, so this was proposed by the ZBA.
No,
So-
the zoning task force.
That's what I mean,
Yeah, Mary, let Mary answer. it.
Okay,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe I can explain.
Well,
Or was
well,
Mary-
yeah, Mary's here.
We got Mary.
Good evening. I'm Mary Nee, the Chair of the Zoning Task Force. This particular item, with regards to pools, what we found is that Eastham has been using a standard of a 12-foot setback for pools normally through the building department. That standard was not codified. So
Okay.
we decided we should codify it since that was in fact the practice. We also, looking at the pools because of noise and other factors, included the pickleball courts and other hard surfaces. Currently, there is no regulation regarding those structures. There is a nuisance and noise ordinance, I understand, that is in place. It was sort of outside of the purview of the zoning task force to really start looking at the issues of regulating noise. But those regulations are in place, and obviously there would be a question as to whether they're effective enough given issues like pickleball courts. But that was really beyond the scope of the task force.
Thank you.
great. Thank you, Mary.
Mary.
Mary, I might stay right there.
Sorry, Mary.
That's a good suggestion. Stay right there, Mary.
Okay.
So I also wanted to ask about the perimeter vegetation. Related to the desire to have this perimeter vegetation on the lots and what, when I look at the Cape and my experience around at least my neighborhood, that's not the norm for us. Our norm is more to go with pine needles and fewer bushes and plants along the perimeter.
I don't think.
That's at least in my neighborhood.
We're not mandating that anyone needs to landscape. We are looking at the 6-foot perimeter. I'll tell you, this came up because there has been clear cutting, and where people are clear cutting to the edge of their property, there has been some adverse situations where property owners who've had some amount of vegetation and trees that have separated their properties from their neighbors, as well as separating their properties in particular from noise from Route 6, was diminished overnight. So we wanted to put in place a requirement that vegetation needed to be maintained, although the reasonableness of this is that this would be something that would come through the planning board, and there would be a discussion with the planning board around mitigation, but in no way is this mandating that anyone needs to hire a landscaper and landscape and add new plantings to their property.
Thank you, Mary.
I guess the wording though says that we shall do this.
Yep.
So to me, that reads as we could be required to do this if for some reason we had to go and work with the planning board on something for our property.
Well,
I understand the intent, but the wording is this.
Paul's coming back.
Hello.
Paul Ag, everybody.
So the way it's worded is that this bylaw will require owners to maintain a vegetative buffer within that perimeter, if there is one. As Mary said, it's not directing owners to have to go out and start landscaping, but if you have vegetation in your perimeter, it's going to require that you keep it in some form. It doesn't require that you have to add to it or necessarily do anything to it, but if you want to clear it out completely, it prohibits that unless you go to the planning board. So basically, if you have something there, you need to keep it. You can add to it as you like. You can prune, you can clear areas out of it. You just cannot totally decimate and clear cut the whole
area unless you go to the planning board so that there's some discussion about the impact on the neighborhood and the abutters. So that's that shall wording is indicating that you shall maintain where it exists a vegetated buffer in some form. So if you have a row of 5 scrub pine trees, that's what you got. You can keep them, you can add to them, you can, like, as I said, you can prune them. If they're diseased, so forth, there's exemptions for that, obviously, but that's the intent. And it's really intended to get at issues of neighborhood character. And as Mary mentioned, this is probably one of the most recurring items that comes before the planning board when we have residential site plan review, is that the neighbors are concerned about the impact of development next door to them. And I'd say the most common issue is a neighbor doesn't have an issue with the project of that next door to them, but they're concerned that they're clear cutting down to their property line. And then the property owner turns to the neighbor and says, well, you clear cut your lot 3 years ago, so why should I replace trees that you cut down? So this is always a chicken and egg kind of situation. So this was something the task force wanted to address and kind of get in front of, so that we don't have folks clear cutting to the property line, and we can hopefully avoid some of these issues as they arise, get ahead of them. So a little bit of elaboration, but that's kind of
Can
where
I
this came
ask-
from.
That was great.
Can I ask a follow-up question to Paul? Is it common when these things come before a planning board for that to be recommended as part of the final approval or design?
Yes.
Okay.
Nearly every residential case has some element of landscape discussion, and one of the most common things is adding screening and buffering to mitigate the impacts of whatever the project might be on the neighbors. So that's
So this will hopefully give the planning board another tool to use when they're reviewing
well,
applications.
and hopefully
Streamline.
it will reduce or even eliminate that issue, because
discussion.
there will be hopefully some buffer there, or at least the beginnings of something, and then it gets to, does it need to be added to, or what is there appropriate?
Thanks.
Mr. Moderator, I'm going to put Tricia back in the audience, but she can feel free to raise her hand again. We do have another question from Raymond Mashad, who I will promote.
Good afternoon, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thanks. Thanks for joining.
Thanks for the opportunity. Just a question. I'm going to go from Article 7B up to Article 7A for definitions. So under Article 7B 6.11(1) exemptions, the second bullet under that is what I believe you were just discussing, which was routine maintenance of vegetation and removal of hazardous trees. When I go up to the definition of a hazardous tree, it looks like it was modified in this warrant to include a tree with a structural defect or disease which impedes safe site distance or traffic flow, or otherwise currently poses a threat to life or property, as identified by a certified arborist or the tree warden. Obviously here on the Cape, we have a lot of really terrible storms, and I don't believe in a lot of cases there's time to contact someone to have them certify that this tree is in fact a threat to life or property. So I guess, what was the definition of hazardous tree prior to this warrant, and how is that going to be construed moving forward?
We did not have in the zoning bylaw a definition for that. So this is a new definition in support of the clear cutting bylaw.
So in fact, the property owners are required to contact the tree warden or a certified arborist before they are eligible to be exempt in that second bullet underneath the exemptions.
So
is that correct?
This is really only applicable when you are proposing to, I guess in two instances, when you're proposing to clear cut an area, or
with regard to what is defined here as a legacy tree. So if we're talking about small scale trees, scrub pines, so on, those are basically exempt because it's not a legacy tree. So we're really trying to get at that issue. We're not trying to regulate taking down every tree. It's obviously not feasible to do that. So it's really wrapped into the clear cutting and the protection of larger diameter legacy trees.
Is there a state definition or a definition of clear cutting that would, and I get the general gist of it, but just to ask the question, is there a percentage basis or in a row, or is there any kind of definition of what clear cutting means? Reason why I ask is we have a bunch of scrub pines, and obviously with the way that they grow in clusters, anything in the middle of two larger trees gets choked out and eventually dies. And would this new regulation apply to a situation like that? Whereas we were trying to let the other trees grow and be healthy?
Well, the way we've defined it in this proposed bylaw is that it's really it's the act of removing all trees or all shrubs or all understory vegetation on the site, removing everything. But we've tried to be specific in that if you remove all of the trees from the site, but you keep all the shrubs and all the understory, that is clear cutting. Conversely, if you wanted to remove all of the shrubs and understory growth, but leave all the trees, that is also clear cutting. So, but to your question, what I think your example is, you can still prune, selectively clear out trees. So if you're trying to clear out a smaller tree that's choking out new growth, that would not fall under this definition of clear cutting. It's when you take out all the vegetation.
Well,
I
wasn't,
appreciate it.
this is more directed towards when you're building a new house on a piece of property, or you're tearing a house down. Is when what this was really directed at. So you just don't clear cut the lot to build. You try and build where you can avoid taking down legacy trees. And
Correct.
that's-
So yes,
This wasn't meant for the normal homeowner that basically is already got a house and is maintaining the property. This is really,
yeah, that's a good point. So yeah, I'm glad you raised that point. So when you go to the clear cutting bylaw 7B, it differentiates between undeveloped and developed properties. So the goal is to prohibit clear cutting, again, removing all vegetation from undeveloped properties unless you have a building permit, indicating that there's a project that's going to move forward and we assume house built, revegetation, new plantings. So it prohibits that unless you have the building permit. And then for developed, it's really that just ties back into this perimeter vegetation. So we're not trying to regulate every hydrangea bush that you put in or whatever. We're trying to prohibit clear cutting within that perimeter for the neighboring property buffers.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank
Does
you.
anybody, I think we've bounced around a little bit on 7, so I don't know if there's anybody at home or in the audience has any specific questions on any of the articles 7A through 7G.
Tricia, again.
H is separate, so I want to kind of keep that.
Mr. Moderator, and promote Tricia,
Okay,
previous guest.
okay.
Again, so, kind of two questions, more for Paul, I guess. One is kind of an understanding of procedurally for when this kind of thing happens, is so for people that already have what they have today on a developed lot, perimeter legacy trees that are there, that kind of stuff is in place and they don't have to change based on any of these zoning bylaw changes, right?
Correct.
So only if it's a new build or if you're doing something massive on your property would this come into play.
Yes.
Okay, and then, so that would be the case too with like the driveway restriction. where you have to be not within the 6 feet. So if your driveway's already in, you don't have to worry, you don't have to move it. But if you did something massive, would it be questioned?
If the existing driveways are in place, so there's no requirement that you're gonna have to relocate. The only time I would see that as an issue would be if you were doing a large scale project that required that you went to the planning board for review. And if for some reason that was identified as an issue by the planning board, if you were planning to alter your driveway or something, or it comes up as an abutter issue, something that might be mitigated, that's an issue where it might be a recommendation or a condition to alter the driveway, but otherwise, what you have is in place. We're not requiring you to alter your driveway, even if it's on the property line now.
Great, thank you, Paul. And Mary, I apologize. I was given incorrect information, but you are the chair of the zoning bylaw committee task force.
Residential zoning task force.
Okay, great. Well, thank you, and we'll look forward to hearing from you, I'm sure, at town meeting. And then just for my own edification, was the planning board decided to set up the review committee? That's why they're voting on this is, no. Who appointed this
The
committee?
select board a
But
couple
did.
years ago set up the zoning task force.
Okay,
And they have to vote on every
okay.
zoning bylaw.
And for people at home, you'll see the planning board has sort of done their summary, right? The summaries were by the planning board, at the end of these articles.
So, Mr. Moderator, the task force was set up, appointed by the select board.
Okay.
The task force worked on all of these recommendations, but the process under Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, Section 5, Planning Board is appointed with the responsibility to actually hold the public hearing, and they're required to provide a summary report to town meeting. So the task force did the work, then got turned over to planning board. They had their public hearing, and we'd worked closely with the planning board and zoning board throughout the process too.
Right. But I was just trying to get everybody to understand, including myself, why and how we got to where we are. And this is why you're seeing the planning board, because Paul helped us out with that. So any other questions on any of the 7A through H articles? Okay. Right. I was separating H because it was a review standards question. So that was sort of, yeah, but we're going to do them individually on Saturday. We're not going to group anything in case, because we have individual votes in case there's any, I think to try to clump those, I don't think it would be in our best interest.
So we're just on D, is that what we're?
No, I think we skipped all over them.
Oh, okay. Oh, I didn't know.
People
He
have asked
had,
various questions, yeah.
okay.
Everybody can read, they're there, but yeah, and we've covered all of them. We've bounced around a little bit, so. If there's no other specific questions.
No, the only thing I would echo Jackie's comments earlier that they've done a great job of posting all of this information on the town website, including the full task force report, which goes into a lot of the analysis as to why we made these recommendations. So I would just encourage people to check that out.
Yes, seconded. It was a great report and great analysis.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we went through, we've gone through the 8 articles. We talked about Article 9, the petition article. We have some appendices. Anybody else, any questions specific or general from the audience or at home? Anyone, being none? Anyone from the board? Any more comments or?
Are we gonna have the Jeopardy music?
See you on the second. I hope not. No difference.
No Jeopardy, but you will get to do your thing at the beginning.
A little quote.
A little quote.
All right, I'll think of a good one. I'll get a good one.
All right, Miss Town Administrator, anything else for the good of the order?
I am all set. Thank you.
Rich?
Good questions.
No one at home? Well, again, this is our fundamental event for our town. where we do the business of the town. A lot of work goes into this, to get to where we are today, and, certainly appreciative of all the different committees in town where, except for the small stipend that these folks get up front, it's the whole volunteer work. So a lot goes into this, and now we'll get to talk about it and, vote on it and, hear from your fellow citizens, and, can't think of a better, way to move our town forward than to have a, town meeting where everybody gets to say what's on their mind. Mr. Arterino.
One other thing I just like to emphasize, and Jackie already mentioned it, at the back of this warrant is the status of the work we've done as a result of the strategic planning committee. So it talks about, what the strategic planning committee said they wanted to get done and what we wanted to get done as a town and where we are on that. So I think it's a really, really good synopsis of the things we have accomplished in the last couple of years. So you take time to read it because it is worthwhile.
No, and as somebody who was on the original strategic planning committee, a lot of work goes into it. A lot of alliterations have happened from it. And it's nice to see that the board is keeping an eye on what was the original strategic plan, where we are, what modifications and alterations we want to make as we move through, so I could stay for more, but I don't have any reason, so I will.
I'll see you on the 6th.
I see you on the 6th, Jerry.
Town meetings more fun
yeah.
with friends.
And keep your fingers crossed for good weather, and I thank everybody for coming, and really had a great time tonight. So thanks again.
Thank you.
Thanks, Scott.
Thank you all.
Great, so we just have one more task,
Right.
signing the articles. Please.
Yeah.
So-
I think we should throw all the numbers in a hat.
No, I have to.
Let finish.
For personal reasons, I may have to leave relatively early. So
So
give me
leave
all
when we
of them
get
up
to the
front.
hard ones.
Give me all the stuff up front. I'm
Okay,
fine.
all right, so, and just so you know, Suzanne, too, each of
Right.
us presents the article, so we sign it so that we know ahead of time what we're presenting. We
Right.
basically read the summary, and if you want if I find it necessary to add a little bit more, especially if it's something you're particularly invested in. So,
We can help with bullet points if needed.
yeah, if you're nervous about some things, Jackie and Rich help a lot when you get stuck. So, all right, so let's just jump right into it. My microphone's off. Okay. So Article 1.
I'll do that.
Jared.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm gonna do it this way because this helps me figure out who's doing what.
Yeah, I think.
All right, Jerry is Article 1. Then we got 2A.
I'll do 2A if you like.
Okay,
That's a toughie. It's a lot of reading.
there you
I'll
go.
do 2A.
Oh, he's going for it. Okay. 2A, then we got 2B,
Water.
which is the water.
Jerry?
Yeah, sure. I'll
Jerry.
do the water.
Okay, then we have 2C, which is collective bargaining. I can do that.
All right.
Then 3A. That's 5-year capital plan. Suzanne, do you want to do that?
Sure.
I can do it.
I
if
was
you want.
gonna, yeah, I mean,
Or did you have something else you wanted to?
I was gonna maybe pick one that I can do the 5-year capital
I'll-
plan. It's fine.
Well, you want,
if you-
yeah, let's give Jerry that.
can do
one, 'cause-
it.
Yeah, because he's gonna skip out.
I'm gonna leave you high and dry, right?
Can't believe you're skipping out. Yeah, I got a 6-7.
3B, capital budget.
Well, since I'm
Also,
doing 3A, I might as well do B since it's
Okay.
all capital budget.
All right, thanks, Jerry. All right, so 3, where's C? C, oh, Rock Harbor
that.
Dredge, Amy, yeah,
That, yep.
okay,
could
3D
do-
is the bond authorization for wastewater.
I mean, I could do that unless someone had a burning desire for it.
Why don't
Art, yeah, I think I'm
Art.
gonna pass that one for Art, yeah,
Okay, go for it.
I think either, yeah, either myself or Art.
So I have.
Then that was 3D, so we have 4A,
Wait a minute, who's doing 3D?
Art.
Sorry.
Rich was
I'll do,
talking.
I'll do 4A.
No. We'll blame it on Amy. 4A. Now we have 4B, which is the established fund. This is the,
Snoozy.
oh, okay.
Oh, that's for the.
I mean, I could also do, I mean,
Yeah, you
yeah,
want to do
Wanna
that, Suzanne?
Suzanne?
And then 4C.
I could also, unless someone has a very strong feeling
So
about it.
this ties into the wastewater, so I wonder,
Right.
Art,
So
would you
Art-
want to do this one
Sure.
because this is the short-term rental tax
Sure.
associated? Okay.
Yeah, that's
4D, this is the cell tower lease.
Or C.
Oh, art.
art.
4D is the authorization of the lease for the cell tower lease.
I can do that if, unless someone else has
Well, that's,
Suzanne,
the boring ones.
4E is the.
Oh, they're related, right?
yeah.
So I'll do that one too then.
Okay,
I'll gladly do 5A, so we don't have to meet on Saturday and get blamed on that we have nefarious thoughts.
5B, authorized town clerk to be closed on Saturdays.
I'm happy to do that.
Amy?
yeah.
Okay,
I think that's the hardest one because it's incomprehensible.
yes.
Thanks. Why didn't you say that first?
No, say that
Let-
after.
let them
Say it after.
They can take Saturday off and it's counted as a holiday.
can't
figure out why we have that.
I'll do 5C.
Okay, oh yeah, that's. Okay, Article 6.
I'll do 6.
You-
I did the first one.
Oh, that's
so-
the one with the
Okay.
mistake, yeah.
Right,
All right.
that town council made, not us.
Now we go. 7A, which is definitions.
I'm sorry, I did
Oh, Amy's doing 6.
Thank you.
Okay,
6A, perfect.
okay, Article 7A, which is the
Definitions, I'll do that.
Suzanne?
Amy.
Oh, Amy, okay, I didn't see. Okay. 7B, but I'll do that if you want.
It
I
should be the anti-clear cutting bylaw.
Right.
I know. I'll do that one.
You doing that one?
Yeah. Then 7C. Setbacks.
I could do setbacks unless someone,
Okay, I just want to make sure someone who's comfortable, like, are you good with that one?
yes, because, yeah, that's why. Yeah.
Yeah, okay,
I'll do,
Can't believe we didn't have one question on 37.
I'll do 7D.
okay. Thank you,
I
Art.
can't, 7D, I can't
I know.
believe we didn't have.
I know. I know.
That's the one I thought.
It's
Well,
amazing.
For years.
All about trees this year.
Okay, 7, yeah, thanks for passing that one to
For
me.
the dogs.
Where the heck is 7E?
Inclusionary.
Inclusionary bylaw on page
That's housing.
40.
Oh, here we go. 7E.
I'll do that.
Okay,
Was that Amy? That's.
yeah, that's
she did that?
Amy.
Yep.
7F is the perimeter vegetation. I can do that one too, since I'm sure no one wants to. 7F, 7G. Site plan review standards.
I'll do that.
Okay, great. I was hoping you to say that. 7H, ZBA review standards. I'll do that one.
Ask Tom, what's it? Directions, I need to go.
Yeah, we need motions for all. these.
Need motions.
Okay. Article 8. CPA.
They usually
I'm-
take those all together.
Those, yeah, and I wonder if Scott, I'm hoping Scott knows that those usually do get grouped.
What he does is he says, does anyone have any?
Any objective?
Yeah, right. Right, I think he knows that 7 is gonna be separated, but that one, maybe he will do
I'll
that
do it
with,
first.
okay.
Who's got 7H?
I do. 8, so 8 is gonna be all together.
I'll do it if you like.
I could also do it.
Four is 8 of them. Then if people want individual and,
Then they'll break them down.
we could, yeah.
Great.
Right, so
Yeah,
you
or
can pass
Suzanne,
them off or-
Sure.
Suzanne doing that?
I don't, I'll do it unless Suzanne really wants to do it.
It's a long piece if we do them in one motion. It's like a page of reading.
Yeah.
literally. Just so you know.
Suzanne-
Well,
I
yeah, she's
mean,
up
I'm
for
not
it.
bad at, I'm
Yeah,
physically capable of reading and talking.
But if you really want to do it, fine.
I just know some people like sometimes have a hard time with it.
yeah, we'll give it to
Okay,
Suzanne.
you got it.
Suzanne?
All right.
Yes,
And that's it.
and maybe I'll
Article
practice
9,
it.
well, that'll be individuals as we choose to respond.
Wally hated to read long things. He
Yes.
wanted short
Short.
motion.
I tried to get some that were
Do-
short.
Jamie, on Article 9, do you want someone, I mean.
So
I'll be
that
one
is
To
we,
respond,
we raise our hand to speak to that
speak, and you're gonna, okay.
because the
We don't
petitioner,
move it.
the petitioner.
I know the petitioner moves it, but it's
Right.
just the response from the,
Do we want to have one person speak? Like, do we want to dedicate one person to speak? Or do we want to just respond as we see fit? I guess that's up to the
Should I
board.
give Suzanne the talking points for all the CPA articles
I would-
individually?
I would, yes, as a, in case, yep. Yeah, so as a board, this is a question for you. How do you want to do that? Do you want
Um,
to
yeah,
dedicate one person
I
or?
think it would be helpful for us to,
And
I
then
mean,
we
I
can-
know it's in the warrant
It's
and
written.
people can read it, but it might be helpful to quickly
Well, if somebody.
say
could
the town summary.
Come and kind of justify, explain why we
Right.
voted the way we did. And
Right.
that's Very simply, just, what we said, needs more input, needs more work.
No communication with businesses.
Yeah.
Did you
I'll
want to,
do it
you wanna do that, Amy?
because she's doing CPA
Okay.
right before.
You know what I mean?
So 9 rebuttals.
Jackie, do you think any of them need any additional? How sometimes we take and try and justify, do you think any of them need any of
I
that?
think we should be really prepared for zoning, or I need to be very prepared to prepare Paul and Mary. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
We need to, the zoning ones, you never know what question someone's gonna ask.
I feel like for the concern with the tree stuff and the clear cutting,
It's all about the trees this year.
that we should have them prepared to speak to them
Yeah.
as an extension of the presentation of the article.
I forgot, Kayla, what are we gonna have for handouts for town meeting? Are we gonna have a wastewater handout, Jason? Did we decide to do that or not? A digital brochure, yeah. I don't, honestly, after tonight, I'm feeling more comfortable. I mean, Rich or I are gonna answer any questions about the operating budget, so then you get into the capital budgets. I don't see any huge big deal.
Probably
there.
the contracts.
I think that could be an area where people will ask questions, so.
But the
Union contracts.
I mean, why we need an override? Maybe because, I mean, we kind of did agree to this last year, they just don't know that. But it is addressed in both the select board summary and in the FinCom summary.
We get inflation at 8% and a cap at 2.5%.
Yeah, it's a lot. Yeah.
We got one on the contract.
I'm just not sure. I mean, I think at town meeting, we have to look at the Zoom thing. I mean, the constant contact thing and see how long we can sign people up via text, because I think that's the problem. We have 1,700 people that are getting flashes, but that still leaves a lot of people who aren't.
Right.
And they're all on the website, but you have to care to go on the website. and-
Are we able, you said, it was somewhere. Where was it? It was somewhere in our packet that you were gonna do outreach through Facebook and whatnot, so I
Yeah,
feel
we're
like,
doing all of that,
yeah, I feel like we get a good number of people through Facebook.
I'm not worried about anything. Are you?
Well, I think being prepared for the
Yes.
tree clear cutting. one. And even though we didn't get any questions tonight,
Wastewater.
the restricted zoning, the zoning.
Lot intensity.
restrictions,
Yeah.
you're gonna need to be able to either hand that off to someone or explain that.
So I just did an interview with Lower Cape TV, so they're gonna be doing a pre-town meeting thing that they send out to all their subscribers, and we can attach that to a flash or whatever, but I did point out, I did a tiny bit on the tree cutting, but I did most of it on the lot
Wastewater.
intensity. No, the
A lot of intensity
the
is,
one that we thought
Like,
was,
yeah,
in
the
it, and I
intensity
said,
goes,
in that video, I said, if you have a question, please call Paul Lag, and I gave his email address, because really, you can't figure this out by yourself.
and then, so
But I'm shocked that we haven't got more questions.
in the wastewater, maybe just a short blurb. It says, you know, just kind of reemphasizes everything we're saying.
Yeah, what you said tonight was great.
We can do the Rich and I dog and pony show, so the things that we need to add are that summary of why,
Yeah.
how we can't access the money without it. That's what it is.
Yes. That. And also the fact that it will not be townwide.
Right, it won't be, yeah. And I think, don't say IA septic. You gotta, first time you gotta explain it. This is an enhanced septic system, which is expensive to put in.
Yeah, you did a good job of like bulleting them out, like you gave a 1, 2, 3, and then you did the,
Shane thought I was okay.
yeah. You can just watch what you said tonight and repeat.
I mean, I'm on a loop.
If there's anything you want me to say on it.
Okay, I'll give you the same talking points, so we'll both have them.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Great.
All right, team.
That's it.
What are we wearing?
I don't know if anybody
nothing.
is,
I think we have to figure that out 2
I need to
days
know what the
before.
weather
I'm trying
is.
to think of whether I could wear a dress with like leggings and socks and.
I had.
Yeah, Jerry and I are really worried about what we're gonna wear.
Yeah.
It's kind of a joke because I wore my swimsuit.
Same every day.
We're just really struggling with this.
When you're cold.
Should
and
I
have
wear
a
my
third
black
one.
suit, my brown shoes or red, what color tie?
Your kids should wear our team shirts.
Yeah.
so Karen followed up with me about the Conscom Wiley Park public comment, and she said that the comment period is closed for the listening session, but there will be additional opportunities to comment on their regulations in the form of the public hearing, and that people are welcome to watch the May 2nd joint work session, but it's a work session, so the
Right,
public
not a
would be just watching and not
Just watching.
Yeah,
participating
I'm out of
or-
town for that.
Just watching a horror.
Yeah, I have a question. If they work, I mean, look, we've got a lot of stuff on the dog issue and it's not ours. But have they at all talked with the Cape Cod Seashore? You know, there were all no pet signs on a lot of paths and now they're gone. What they've done, is there any kind of coordination? We're looking to see to allow dog owners to exercise their pet.
Seashore hasn't changed anything.
They don't have no pets, they have leash pets.
If you're on the
Yeah,
beach,
leashes.
I have to.
They've leashed and
Well, there's
no.
one thing that
depending
says
on-
no
You have to
pet
sit
sign.
outside the protected areas. You cannot take the dogs on any of the trails except Pilgrim Springs
You're right.
and the Dome Trail.
The
All
bike-
the
yeah, the
trails, you
bike
can't have
path.
any dogs on.
And
In the
bike-
winter.
Well, the bike path in the winter.
In the
Oh,
winter.
yeah, certain time frame on the bike path.
Right.
Always head of the middle bike path all year long.
Yeah.
Nauset bike path. I think it's October to May or something.
It's a,
Can,
yeah.
can I make a
They haven't changed
recommendation
anything.
that perhaps we put this on a future agenda?
Yeah, but
Well,
it's
it's
not
not our
really, it's not really, Wiley
Well,
Park isn't really our.
But we shouldn't like have a conversation about it now either, and if we were gonna sit and
Yeah.
chat about it, we should perhaps put it.
Yeah,
on
and
the
really
agenda.
reiterate our current dog bylaws, which say dogs should be leashed
Right.
or under immediate and effective voice control.
Right.
So,
Well, okay, would you like a motion to adjourn?
should we adjourn, Jamie?
Would you like to?
Just like a bullet list of.
We're devolving here.
I know, that's. That's why I suggested to put it on a future agenda, or would you like a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.